Raymond Cohen here. Today we're going to do a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. The Mishnah is actually in the third parak of Pirkei Avot if you want to open it up. It's a Mishnah Yud Bet. The Mishnah starts off by saying rather, Hu haya omer, Kol shema'asav merubim me'chokhmato, chokhmato mitkayemet. V'chol shechokhmato merubah me'ma'asav, en chokhmato mitkayemet. Which basically means anybody whose wisdom is less than their deeds, meaning their good deeds and what they do, so then that wisdom is ultimately going to crack under the slightest amount of pressure. It's not necessarily going to last. But anybody whose deeds exceed their wisdom, their good deeds obviously exceed what their start over.
There you go.
So today, Raymond Cohen here. Today we're going to do Mishnah Pirkei Avot. Mishnah is in the third parak of Pirkei Avot. If you want to open it up, take a second. And it's in Mishnah Yud Bet. Mishnah Pirkei Avot goes as follows. It says, Hu haya omer, Kol shema'asav merubim me'chokhmato, chokhmato mitkayemet. V'chol shechokhmato merubah me'ma'asav, en chokhmato mitkayemet. So what that loosely means is that anybody whose deeds exceed their wisdom, so then that wisdom that they possess is ultimately going to last in the end of the day. But anybody whose wisdom exceeds their deeds, meaning their actions don't necessarily speak as loud as their words do, so then that chokhmah, that amount of wisdom that they possess, even though it might be a vast amount of wisdom, it won't necessarily last and it will ultimately crack under even the slightest amount of pressure. This is not the first statement of Chazal to say such a thing. There are others, especially in Pirkei Avot. It says, Lo hamidrash ikar ela ma'aseh, which means don't necessarily talk all day about what is right, rather do what is right. And it also says, Emor me'at va'aseh harbeh. When you're thinking about taking something on, you shouldn't necessarily talk about it so much. Emor ma'at, say very little about it, va'aseh harbeh, but do it a lot. Actually get it done in action. And there's a constant theme in Judaism. If you look at, throughout, it's not necessarily about what's necessarily going through your head. More it's about how you take that wisdom and what you do with it. Do you bring that into the world? Are you a person who is able to express the knowledge and wisdom that you have in the world, or are you someone who, or is your wisdom just relegated to your mind? And if you're cutting that off, if you're cutting off your wisdom, so then you're not necessarily expressing yourself in a Jewish way. But a lot of times we have this idea, and we say, okay, so now I want to actually take something on, and so now I want to talk about it because that's going to get me going. So how do I sort of minimize that, and how do I actually take it on? So in order to answer that question, we have to look at Avod Rabbi Natan. In Avod Rabbi Natan, which is actually Midrash that corresponds to Masechet Avod, it's Avod Rabbi Natan, it's a little bit more elaborate. So it actually attaches a pasuk to this Mishnah. It actually says, Kol chokhmato merubah me'ma'asav, en chokhmato mitkayemet, shneim ar na'aseh v'nishma, which the classic understanding is that na'aseh is more than nishma. That the na'aseh, the Bnei Israel said, was even greater than the nishma. Rabbeinu Yonah takes that, and he says that in order for somebody for their deeds to truly exceed their wisdom, they need to take on in their heart to be able to listen to those who reprimand them around them, those who are striving to give them constructive criticism to help them get better. And to the extent that a person creates or opens himself up to that kind of constructive criticism, so then ultimately what happens is that he's able to increase his actions, and he's ultimately able to come to the point where he's not saying so much, rather he's doing much. And so to the extent that you do that, your ma'asim will go in concert with your wisdom, because you're constantly going to want to seek out deeper meaning in everything that you're doing. You're going to maybe where it's feeling, you're going to want to investigate a little bit more. So what is exactly I'm doing right now? And then you attain more wisdom. And then once you attain more wisdom, obviously you want to keep your ma'asim on top of your wisdom, just like the Mishnah said. And so once you do that, you'll take on another deed, and then you'll start to look into that. And it's sort of this cycle in terms of your avodah that'll help you ultimately achieve success in your spirituality.